This is the one from Mount Rushmore, and just to read it closely, because he hands you his whole psyche in these speeches. He doesn't hide it. It's pretty much all there. There's, like I said, the individualism, the ghost, the Red Scare, the erasure, the tell about the midterms. And like, once you see the architecture, you aren't able to unsee it. The first thing that he said, he basically defined America for you explicitly.
Unlike societies based on class, clan, or tribe, we see every citizen as an individual, equal under the law and equal under the eyes of the Lord.
Right there, first breath. The American is by definition the one who has no collective. Not class, not clan, not tribe, just a sovereign individual alone, equal under the law, under the eyes of the Lord. And that isolation is being sold to you as glorious, right? And that's the thing that I was talking about. The founding that forgot to include the word fraternity. Here's a man, 250 years later, stating it as if it was a national creed. We are the people with no we. And he means that as a boast. And then watch how fast that boast turns into a threat.
You do not have to be born here, but you do have to love what we have built. You must love our country.
You must love our country?
There's never been anything like us anywhere on earth.
And again, that's the individualism curdling into real time. Belonging isn't blood, but it's loyalty. It's the loyalty oath. It's love this or you're not one of us. And who fails the test? He tells you immediately.
A generation after we fought and won the Cold War against the menace of communism, there is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success.
The immigrant, the newcomer with the wrong ideas. And that brings us to the ghost, because the ghost here is communism to him. And if you hold the actual content of what he says against the actual content of what communism actually is, because the gap is obscene.
Communism is a mortal threat to American liberty. It is the greatest threat to our country, including World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or even 9/11. We're not going to let this happen to us. Believe me, we're not letting it happen.
And what is this civilization-ending menace concretely in his own telling? He doesn't say. He can't say, because if he described it, you'd see it. So he keeps it as this ghost.
It's an ideology of mass theft, mass control, mass lies, and mass murder.
Pure incantation. No referent of anything. And then what's left is the tell, that the one place he lets the reference slip.
The Communist Party is made up of illegal immigrants, criminals, and everybody that doesn't want to work.
And that's it. That's the definition. Stripped of the ideology off of it. And the communist in his speech is the immigrant, the criminalized, and the poor. That's it. That's the moral threat greater than World War II. The newcomer and the person the system has criminalized, and the person who, quote, doesn't want to work, which is to say, the person who won't submit to the labor market on the terms that are offered. He's not describing an ideology. He's describing the people at the bottom of the property arrangement. The word communism is the alarm bell that's wired into the property line, and he's just told you exactly who trips it. The ones with the least and the newcomers. He's taken some of the least powerful people in the country, the most powerless people in the country, migrants, the incarcerated, the poor, and cast them as a threat more dangerous than fucking Pearl Harbor. And there is no coherent analysis there, right? It's a man pointing to the weakest people in the country and screaming, they are the danger, and asking the crowd to believe it. And notice what real communism actually is. The thing that he's naming, it's a critique of exactly this, of the property arrangement, of who owns, who rents, and who works, who exploits. Whatever you think, there's a theory about class. And he opened the speech by saying America has no class, only individuals. So he's built a perfect closed loop. There are no classes here. We are all just individuals. Anybody who says otherwise, anybody who points at that arrangement and says, actually, there's a top and bottom and it's rigged, that person is the communist menace and must be sent into exile. He's not refuting the class analysis. He's criminalizing it. He's making it illegal to notice material reality. That's the function of the ghost. It's not there to describe an enemy. It's there to make description itself an act of treason. And then he tells you what specifically he wants to make unsayable. And this is the part where his mask comes off all the way.
As for those who peddle Marxist lies about our heritage, who tell our children that we live on stolen land or that our heroes were oppressors, they're doing something much worse than slandering our past.
So that's communism. Saying the land was taken. There's indigenous people, land offenders who are completely opposed to communism who say that because it's the truth. And the communism of like European communism is something, it's literally what influenced Marx and Engels to write about it, right? And and then those people also have rejected it in certain senses, right? Because the indigenous way of life is not communism, it's completely different. But the truth is, they don't care about that. They care about saying anybody who says the land was stolen, anybody who says some of our heroes owned slaves, that's it. That's the Marxist menace that's greater than World War II, greater than the Nazi threat. It's not a rent freeze this time. It's not even a political policy. It's just a historical record. It's just telling the truth about the founding. He's calling the accurate account of American history communism and proposing to exile the people who tell it. And he says it right there, here at Mount Rushmore, which is literally a monument blasted into a mountain the Lakota considers sacred in the Black Hills, land that is taken in explicit violation of a signed treaty. He stands on stolen land and calls the observation that it is stolen a communist lie. You cannot write these things more perfectly. The stone itself is the rebuttal, and he's standing on it. And then he says, the collective that he tries to build here, and it fails because it stays individual even as he reaches for a we.
We laid the railroads. We raised up those big, beautiful skyscrapers, harnessed electricity, and invented the light bulb, the telephone, the airplane, the assembly line, the television, the microchip, the internet, the GPS, the smartphone, and almost everything else that has ever been invented, including, especially over the last few days in certain areas, a thing called air conditioning. We invented it all.
It's all litany, and it's meant to fuse you into a national body, which is a classic move. The Volk, right? The people as one. But listen to what it actually is saying. It's a list of products. It's a consumer catalog. It's not blood and soil. It's not the mythic body of a nation. It's inventions, it's achievements. It's the smartphone and the internet and NASCAR. It's a corporate authoritarianism reaching for a mass fusion of European old world style fascism and coming up with a shopping list, because that's the only we American individualist culture can create. We made of things that we bought and things that we own. Even his fascism is privatized and neoliberalized. Even his Volk is just an empty brand. He wants the mass formation, and all he has is a market. So the collective that he offers you is, look at all the stuff America has. And there's nothing new. It's the poison thing that has poisoned American liberalism from the very beginning, because there was never enough collective in America to make it thick enough to be anything worthwhile. And now the part that most people will skip past, and it's the actual point of the entire speech, the reason all the rest of it is there, buried in the middle of this anti-communist garbage.
We can only lose the midterms if we allow ourselves to lose the midterms, if we are foolish, stupid, and unwise. But if we terminate the filibuster, as we should do, and immediately vote for the Save America Act, then we will not lose an election for 100 years. We do that, we're not going to lose an election for 100 years.
And there's no metaphor there. That's a president telling the crowd that with the right procedural moves, his side will not lose an election for a century. Everything else, the ghost of communism, the evil menace of immigrants, the communism greater than World War II, the exile, the forced loyalty oath, all of it is packaging for that sentence. The whole apparatus of the menace exists to justify the emergency, and the emergency exists to justify never losing an election again. And that's the entire grammar of it. You manufacture a threat so total, literally greater than Pearl Harbor, greater than 9/11, that any measure becomes reasonable. And then you slip the actual measure in while everybody's still frightened of the ghost. Terminate the filibuster, pass the Save America Act, never lose another election. He is saying these things out loud to great applause. So essentially, he has said, there are no classes, only individuals. So anyone who mentions class is a communist, and the communists are the immigrants and the poor and the people who tell the truth about our history. And they are a threat so great that it justifies making sure that we never lose another election for 100 years. That's what he said in this entire speech. That's the whole thing. And again, to tie it all the way back to everything that we've watched tonight, the Golden Age, the arches, the sunken Iranian ship, and the flag with the stars pointed the wrong way. This is the same move at the level of the soul of the American project. Like, all night he is asking you to feel prosperity instead of counting on it. He's asking you to feel the menace instead of understanding it. Because if you looked at it, if you walked up to this terrifying communist threat and actually saw it, you would find a migrant, you would find an unhoused person, you'd find a historian saying, actually, yes, that we are on stolen land. And the ghost is enormous. And it's precisely because the reality is so small and so powerless that he needs to make it greater than both world wars and 9/11. Because the truth is, it's a bunch of people with nothing. And you can't build a 100-year lock on power out of that unless you first inflate it into the enemy of God in July 4th and American life itself. And he is standing on stolen land. He calls the truth a communist lie, pointed to the weakest people in the country and named them the greatest threat in its history, and told you that the solution was to make sure he never loses another election again. That's the Mount Rushmore speech. It was, that was it. Wild stuff.